206.
Mic check, mic check.
Salutations.
1 1 2.
Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the 206. So today, originally, we had planned a conversation surrounding politics with a guest of ours, but unfortunately, that guest was unable to make it last second. So we didn't want to scrap today. We thought it would still be good to record. So we decided on the fly to just talk about long distance relationships because we're all familiar with it, or most of you listening, I feel like most people have experienced a long distance relationship of some sort, and the three of us are all experienced with it. So we thought we'd just talk about our experiences, the pros and cons of them, and anything we learned from our long distance relationship. So with that being said, go ahead and pass the rock over to Tim to get today's convo started.
Yo, what up, peoples? Thanks for stopping by the 206 again. 206 sends its love, condolences to everyone suffering in our day and age, especially as it relates to the pandemic. We hope that you listening to us will possibly take off some of the edge or bring you to a much more positive, healthier mental space. So yeah, like my co-host mentioned, we're going to float around the thoughts, feelings surrounding long distance relationships. I guess I'll start off talking about a little bit of my experience. And if I could just start off saying that my whole life romantically has basically been one long distance, parade.
I see a pattern. You know what they say about certain patterns. Evidence of a deeper issue.
Long distance. Well, if I had to kind of sit on that one for a while, I'll just say misfortune in regards to having a physical means to experience close physical proximity with a lot of my relationships. But I can definitely share with the world that definitely 5 years ago, once I became disabled, it became significantly harder just in terms of physical mobility to go out there and be next to the girls I happen to be exercising a romantic space with. I think in terms of long distance, I wish I could come up with a number. Most of them, at least, were here in the US, but a good handful of them, I say maybe 3 to 4 of them. Yeah, 3 to 4 of them were actually overseas. Some thoughts that come to mind with long distance is that obviously during the pandemic, I think this pandemic has definitely forced a lot of people's life paths into a long distance in nature for obvious social distancing, self-isolation, self-quarantine measures. Long distance, I feel through most of my friends, obviously is really scorned. It's, avoided at all cost because of the hardships that come with not being able to be next to the people you love. But throughout my life, I've seen so many silver linings, so many advantages. One of them being an exercise in imagination and patience. I feel that the instant gratification we all experience in this world definitely has its setbacks in regards to a lot of strengths we could have surrounding resilience and conflict management. I feel that because we really have a lot of means in our day and age to satisfy a lot of our wants and needs instantly by like the press of a button. A lot of media in terms of, wanting to escape reality, again, by the press of a button, gaming, for example, and stuff. I feel that the amount of patience and imagination one is really forced to use when communicating with their loved one overseas is a really good thing. It can really help usher in a lot of love and passion where there wasn't, in terms of cynicism, indifference, apathy. It can bring in a lot of hope, a lot of healthy optimism in relationships, which I think is lacking in this day and age. Um, Romanticism, has its drawbacks in terms of delusions and inaccuracy of what your partner's really like. Um, a lot of what do you call unrealistic expectations that maybe we have towards our partner, idealism. I feel that in a way it could be good in regards to all of that. Now, I think that long distance also in terms of perks can bring you back to old forms of communication, like written letters, reading books together, voice recordings, which, for a lot of us, maybe pretty much non-existent since we can pick up the phone, text each other all the time, video chat, no problem whatsoever. But a lot of times, you know, depending on how long you've been in a long distance relationship with this person, those things, may get tiring. You may want to diversify the things you're doing with your partner, you know, over across long distances. So, having things like letters and books and stuff like that can be a little bit time in corporate, and it can really make you think of things and look at different perspectives of your ongoing relationship in ways that you couldn't have before. But a lot of negatives of it is, obviously outside of just the sadness, the apprehensiveness of not being next to your partner, it can kind of avoid placing you in a position that you probably would find yourself if you were spending lots of physical time with your partner. There's a lot of conversations personally I feel that don't go down when you're spending a lot of time with your partner constantly and not talking enough and conversating enough about different aspects of life, about each other, about where you want to go, you know. Long distance kind of forces that upon you. But yeah, I mean, I've had long distance relationship across gaming. I think it's cool to imagine too that we do have a huge advantage next to older generations in terms of accessibility and a variety of ways to interact with your partner. Like me, when it comes to the video gaming, you know, for all those who don't game out there, the gaming world can bring you in touch with anyone in almost every corner of the planet. Um, and that brings in a lot of diversity of thoughts, lifestyles, and attitudes that you won't find here in this country. So I've had maybe one, two, three, maybe three long distance relationships across the video game, or it started out that way, and it's fun. You know, I talked about imagination before. Video games is all about escaping reality. So in a sense, even if you say weren't you consider yourself an imaginative person, you kind of would have to be if you play video games. But video game world and interacting with your partner through the video games kind of places you in that mindset, which has been pretty fun. It's been a really fun experience in regards to meeting what I quote unquote call gamer chicks. And I think last I'll mention is that long distance makes finally meeting each other that much sweeter because you've
So
gone for an
sweet.
extended a period of time without obviously being in physical proximity with each other. And I always mention to my friends every time we talk about things like, oh, it's been a long time since I've been here. It's been a long time since I've done this or that or this or that. I can't help but say that, hey, I'd rather not go to the beach all the time or do this all the time because I know it just makes it that much sweeter when you do get to do it after a while. And I feel like it cultivates and exercises a lot of appreciation for that specific place or happening, which I think is lacking in our time as well. But yeah, and what you think, boys?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny because as you were talking, I was thinking about how even the term long distance relationship, how that's probably relative to a lot of people because what one person considers a long distance relationship, I'm sure another person doesn't. For example, myself, just thinking back on it, honestly, unless it's unless you're living on different continents, I don't even really see it as a long distance relationship. If you can hop in your car and see your girl an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours even later, that's not a long distance relationship. If you can hop on a plane and be there again in a couple hours, a handful of hours, again, in my mind, not a long distance relationship. So for me, I only consider something where it's like you live in two different countries. There's a huge time difference, okay? And obviously, it's much harder to go to visit your partner overseas than it would be if they're in the same state, then or even in a different state. It's it's to me it's light years of a difference. I mean, what my last girlfriend, she lived 2 hours away from me. I did. It was funny in my mind because, like, I was used to. I mean, I've been in a few long distance relationships, and then the cross continental ones, and I'm like, this is nothing. I can get in my car and be there, depending on traffic. What, 2 to 4 hours, depending on how bad the traffic was. Those drives were so easy for me. There's the fact that I can just get in my car and go see her. It was nothing. So I'll go ahead and talk about that. I'll go ahead and talk about long distance relationships from what I consider long distance relationships, and that being when someone is when you can't see them whenever you want to. Because yeah, technically, in the relationships where you live a few hours from each other, a couple hours drive, you can't see them whenever you want to, but at the same time, you kind of can. So for me, some of the positives for long distance relationships where you can't see each other, um, without, like, significant amount of planning, and without a significant amount of planning, is this: communication. You touched on it a little bit, but I'd like to hit on a few different aspects of it. To me, a relationship is all about communication. I mean, I can extrapolate that and apply it to other things as well and say a lot of things in life are all about communications, but specifically relationships, 100% communication. Even things that you don't think are communications are about communication, just in a different sense than like directly talking to one another. Because even when you're doing activities together, going to the movies, to the park, whatever the hell you're doing, right? It's communication, right? So I like the fact that your relationship is heavily predicated upon communication, and I feel like it helps foster and develop a really strong sense of communication, or strong foundation of communication, that for me is going to help you get through trials and tribulations that you will encounter in the future. Because when you face hardships together as a couple, how you communicate, to me, determines whether or not you persevere through them or you become victim to them. And not only communication in the sense of, like, obviously getting to know each other better, because how else are you really getting to know your partner through long distance unless you're talking to them, asking questions? There's so many people that I know that are more like doers. We do things together. That's have a companion type relationship, where if they get in a long distance relationship, it's like, wow, like, yeah, I never knew as much about my partner long distance than I did people that live next door to me or whatever in the same city to me, because they're not forced to learn that much about their partner if they're just out doing things all the time. Like, the need to actually find out more about the person through verbal communication is not really present, or even if it's still present, you get distracted by just the doing things together aspect of the relationship. So I really like that in a long distance relationship, the foundation of your relationship is communication. It's at the center. Everything revolves around your communication, both in talking to each other and learning more about each other through talking, but then also like how you consult and learning to, like, talk through problems. Both those aspects of communication are, I think, not even good. They're like necessary in order for the long distance relationship to work. So it's funny because I'm someone whose love language, I would say, it's like kind of tied. What my number one is, I say it's tied between communication. Not communication. Look at me. Look how much I like communication. Communication isn't even a love language, although I feel like all of them are about communication in some way or the other. But my top two languages, love languages, are quality time and physical touch. And obviously, technically, in a long distance relationship, you're not getting either one of them. Okay, but to me, quality time is just speaking with my partner, even if it's not a long distance relationship. I genuinely just like picking up the phone. Hey, how was your day? At the end of the day, right? Even if you're not seeing them, you're still talking. I consider, genuine heart to heart conversation, whether it's about a trivial matter or something deep, I consider that quality time. So for me personally, that quality time isn't really lacking in long distance relationship. It's actually in some ways pitched to the highest degree because you're having to communicate with them because you don't have anything else to do. And any other creative stuff you do to maybe like make the relationship feel more like a relationship, like watching movies together, as Tim was talking about, reading books to each other over the phone, anything creative you do to kind of liven up the relationship is also quality time. So for me, I would say communication is one of the great benefits that comes from long distance relationships. And I think that honestly, I would like it, if I ruled the world and can wave a magic wand and decide everything that happened for for everyone in the world. I would say that sometime in their life, I would want people to get into a long distance relationship to help explore and improve their communication skills. So that's number one. I would say one of the other positive things is that it kind of allows you to live more of a cohesive lifestyle. I believe in what the option A or option B episode. Tim, you might have mentioned something about what was it? You mentioned something about no. It was the relationships about there was the episode about old flames. And you talked about how, it taught you to make sure not to just ditch everything going on in your life and just focus in on that one person. I feel like when it's long distance relationship, because you obviously just can't get in your car or just be over that person's house all the time, and you may be limited in how often you communicate with them, it kind of forces you to also focus on your life and anything that's happening in your life. And that person doesn't become the center of your life and everything revolves and orbits around them, but rather that person becomes a part of your life and they can assimilate into your life instead of coming in and dominating your life. So I feel like that's another positive. It allows you to live more of a cohesive lifestyle because, again, you mentioned it, but oftentimes you hear your friends saying, one thing I don't like about so and so, or even themselves, is that when I get into a relationship, I kind of stop talking to my friends. I don't spend as much time with family, et cetera, et cetera. I feel like that doesn't happen as much with long distance relationships because it inherently allows your lifestyle to be more cohesive. So I have some negatives about long distance relationships as well, but I'll go ahead and pass the rock over to Jason so he can talk about, some pros and cons, or if he wants to give some personal experience, if he wants to provide some personal experience to the audience or whatever.
Yeah, no, I'll roll with some of the pros too. All that. Appreciate the sentiments, the thoughts. I agree with you guys in a lot of ways. A lot of great things that come from distance, like especially with the levels of and options of communication we have through technology and, that is using internet technology or even just, pen and paper. There's a lot that can be said for, I agree with what y'all are saying with creativity. There's a lot can be said for that. And long distance, like anything, man, I think it's all good for some time. Like a season, if you will, if you get me, like the ebb and the flow of life. At the same time, maybe long term and long distance is possible as well. I'm sure there's people out there who roll like that, my personal kind of experience, I would say, with long distance, I've had a few. For me, long distance is like a flight. That's the way I'm looking at it. I got to take a flight to get there.
Yeah.
So I had a relationship in which that was the case, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun at first, in particular because it's adventurous. We would communicate mostly by phone, but also email. We did a lot of emailing, and
So what's this? Back
yeah,
in the Stone Age, 2004.
that's right, 2004, man. Before even texting
Wait,
was something.
was it really 2004?
Yeah, for real.
Oh,
Probably
what a lucky
maybe.
guess.
Yeah, 2004, man. Maybe sometime around then. But yeah, the email was on point. We had met in a circumstance. I was traveling, and I went through some parts of the United States and met this person, and we exchanged information, and started a communication virtually, mostly email first. We actually emailed for a month or more, and
You didn't cop that
then the
MySpace,
phone.
bro.
Yeah, right. It was MySpace time. Yeah, we had some of that going. In any case, great, man. The emails were really fun. Clearly, she took liking to the pen pal kind of energy of it all and the investigation of it all. We asked each other lots of questions and elaborated on answers to each other's questions. Really robust emails. Really, like sometimes hours were spent composing emails.
Been there.
Yeah, man. And one of the kind of blessings of that, I say that to say, as time went on, we uh, phone the phone was introduced and conversations, and yeah, hours long conversations. I remember in the beginning of our verbal exchange, sometimes it was all night. I would stay up all night, 8 hours, like no joke, 8 hour conversations, seamless.
Wait,
Like
Jason, you can talk for a long time? No way, bro.
you know yeah, that's I think it's mandatory for me when it comes to partnership, someone who can converse, as need be, if you will. So for those who like to run long distances, naturally you would do that with other folks who like to run long distances. So I always enjoy a little long distance conversation, if you will. In any case, too, like kind of like speaking on some of the fun parts or the sweet parts of it regards those emails, just kind of fast forward maybe a year into our getting to know each other, which included a few visits, flights to each other's hometowns and meeting people who we were significant in our lives because, we're visiting maybe a week or 10 days and, kind of going full on, just enjoying uh, the short kind of vacation of it all. But then also, yeah, appreciating each other's company face to face and sharing in that physical proximity has um, really great, uh, impact on how you feel about somebody. So when we would go back long distance, it was always kind of difficult, but we knew we had this other mode of communication that we could continue, and and we knew at some point it wasn't going to maintain the distance. We were going to have to make some choices, but anyway, at one point in our visits, and we were getting closer and closer. As a gift, she gave me a book, and the book, I opened it, and it was print, like all the printouts I guess, what am I trying to say? It's all the emails in the book form. So all our
Oh
email exchange.
shit.
Yeah.
I like
So it's
that.
like, super, dude. I cried. It
Man, that's like
genuinely touched
a
me.
dream come true right there.
Hey, where that girl at, bro?
Truly, yeah. No, yeah, it was one of the sweetest gifts I ever had. And yeah, truly, man. Just that. I mean, it couldn't have happened without that long distance. Clearly, I mean, maybe we would have done emails like that, but highly unlikely. We would have been doing emails at some point in our relationship. Maybe down the road we go long distance, something like that would happen. But I don't know. In any case, yeah, that was one of my highlights of my experience with that person. And yeah, what more can I say about that? I'll leave that particular experience alone. I had another relationship, I would say now, right? So that was like over 15 years ago. Now I like the idea of long distance relationship from the perspective of space. It need not be across a state or a continent or around the world, just space in general, someone who can honor space. So me personally, I enjoy now more.
Remember, audience, this comes from the proponent of sleeping in separate beds. This guy likes his space.
And by space you refer to like independence, whatever constitutes
Independent,
your
yeah.
independence. Yeah.
yeah, essentially privacy, like not being with someone, having my own engagement with the environment I'm in, and not including other people. That has become an important part of my life. I do personal wellness work in those times. I take inventory
Engage
on
with
how
other
I
women. No, I'm joking. Let me stop.
how I operate in the
Going
world.
wild, get in touch with nature.
Yeah, for sure, man. I enjoy that. I also enjoy um, other people's company too, right? So in friends and family that would also deserve uh, cultivating in a relationship way. I still have to work on my relationship with my parents, with my brothers, my in laws, my if you will, married family. I have to still take inventory of relationships with people in my community, my work, coworkers, so that takes all kinds of focus as well, and it deserves attention. So I appreciate, the idea of partnership. When I say individual dynamics to partnership is, yeah, if someone who understands that when you're trying to um, have, be conscious in the world and have positive exchanges with everyone you cross paths with. You're trying to create a life that brings happiness and joy, a life that brings perspective to the struggle and challenges. These things take a lot of effort and they take energy. And I personally know how to do it for myself. I don't know how to do it for someone else. And I know for me, it requires a certain level of attention. So maybe in the future, my growth process will look different. How I take care of what I feel gives me the energy and the purpose and the drive to move through the world in a positive way, at least from my perspective, what I consider to be positive. So, you know, that space can allow for that. I definitely do believe as well. People can be in the same neighborhood, even the same house, and practice such things. It need not be total separation. So people just have to, communicate about that and be on the same page with whatever that meant. So those were the positives. I'll leave it at that for my personal kind of reflection on a few positive aspects of distance.
I want to ask you guys a question, but before I do, Jason, the gift that you received from that ex about the email booklet or whatever, or the emails in the form of a book, it reminded me of a dream I had about an ex in a long distance relationship. And to this day, it's one of the most vivid and intense dreams I've ever had. But before I want let me say what I want to ask you guys as a question so I don't forget after I tell my dream. And that's this. And I think it might also provide me a chance to talk about my interesting perspective on about what negative aspects long distance relationships can bring. But my question is, what do you think is the most important thing in a long distance relationship? And I know I talked about communication a lot, but to me, that's not the most important thing, because to me, there's this thing, if it's not there, it doesn't really matter about anything else. So just keep that in mind as I'm telling you guys my dream. You can think about it, and then we can transition into answering that question. As far as my dream is concerned, man, so this is a long distance relationship where after me and the person spent some time together in real life, then this person went somewhere else. And I'm a very, anyone who knows me in general about anything, I'm a very demonstrative and expressive person. So when this person left, I didn't have any way to really show my affection. So overnight, I became like the Negro Shakespeare, and I was writing this girl everything you can imagine: emails, long Facebook messages, poems, short stories, essays, you name it, it was there, right? So the dream I had was so crazy. So if you imagine those portables that some schools had whenever there wasn't enough space on the main campus for the students, they built portables. Some
I
people call
love
them
those
bungalows.
portables. I,
Some
I I preferred those over the concrete classrooms, to be honest.
some people call them bungalows. I think in Cali, people call them bungalows, but where I grew up in Florida, we called them we called them portables, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
portable
So
buildings. Yeah.
we were on the beach, and I was in a portable, and there's this window. And it's weird. It's almost like it wasn't really a window. Like it was a window, but for some reason, when I was looking through it, it wasn't like I was looking through a window. It was like I was looking through a veil. So I was in my portable. She was in her portable, right? And there's a, a we weren't too far apart, but there's some distance between the portables. I would say maybe 20 feet between the portables. So on attached to the roof of each portable was some tape and string, and there was some string that connected the top of my portable to her portable. And along the strings were, what are those clips, those wooden clips that people use for like dry hanging laundry, or they use them for other things, but it's like those wooden clips, like you press one side down and the two parts open in the front of it, whatever. There was those things that were attached to pictures hanging along the string. So when I went outside and I was looking at the pictures, there were snapshots of our conversations from Facebook to WhatsApp to email, all the ways we communicated. There were snapshots of things we had said to each other in our conversations, and even some things that were maybe said across phone call and whatnot. They were all there on the strings. And then I saw that and I was like walking through it. And for some reason, I didn't go to the portable. I just kept walking down to the beach. I went to the beach, and I went to the shore, and I just remember to this day, and this is not just exclusive to this can't speak English today. This is not just exclusive to this dream. There are other dreams I've had where there are things that I've seen that I've never seen in real life. But in this dream, this same phenomenon happened where I looked up at the sky. I can't even really put it into words. The sky was littered with stars. You know how if you live out near the mountains, you can go up into the mountains and drive. I mean, Jason, you're from Cali, you know this. You drive up into the mountains away from the light, and you pull off to the side where they have that little lookout point. You turn off your car lights, you look up, and the sky looks completely different than if you were in the city. It was like that, but on crack, on steroids. And the color of the sky was like in gradient, and it went from like this cyan, teal, aqua blue, fading into this neon pink, and this purple. But like these colors were not like things I'd ever seen in real life, and they were so vivid, and they literally just popped out of the sky. And then the water was this sapphire aquamarine color as well. And I just remember being transfixed, like looking at these colors and looking at the stars. So when I sat down on the beach and I was just looking out over the water and up at the sky, and then all of a sudden I kind of looked down I looked down at my shoulder, my right shoulder, and she's just leaning her head on my shoulder. And she didn't say anything and I didn't say anything. And to me, what I took from that dream at the time was that there was just a sense of comfort that the relationship was real and we were still connected despite the distance. And I had a sense of comfort that whatever happened, everything was going to be good. Everything was going to be okay. So I just share that dream because it happened within a long distance relationship, and what you said about the gift just reminded me for some reason. But then also, I think that's another thing. I always have crazy dreams in my long distance relationships, and I love dreaming. I'm a lucid dreamer. I remember all my dreams, and so long distance relationships, I usually oftentimes dream about my partner. And I haven't really, when I'm in regular distance relationships, it doesn't really happen like that because I'm always seeing my partner. So then in the long distance relationships, it's like my dreams are like, serving as that me being together in person, even though obviously you're not really together in person. So that was that dream. And as far as the question I had, yeah, let me ask you that, Jason, Tim, whichever one of you wants to go first. What is the most important thing in a long distance relationship? What needs to be present in order for it to work? Because obviously, if it's a relationship that you ultimately want to end in marriage or domestic partnership or whatever, somebody has to make a drastic change. The longer the distance between the two, the more drastic the change, especially if it's cross continental. So obviously, someone has to make a big change in their life. So in order for the relationship to work, what do you think is the most important thing? Don't all jump at once.
It's I don't have like a single thing, I feel that there's like a mix of consciousness, love, love of people, like love of humanity, um, and imagination, which deals with like your personality and like what's passed down in your genes. But I feel like if more and more people understood a lot what goes on in our day-to-day affairs as it relates to our behavior and stuff, I think the your universe and perspective of like all the things that's going on between you and your partner and just people in general, but in this case your long distance partner, you know it would be endless, a multitude of things you could explore with your partner, through conversation and socialization. But that depends on what you see or what you understand to be happening between you and your partner. If all you see is just, your partner being far away and, you know, his or her comings and goings, like what do they do of the day, and what you miss, what you long for, you know, really when it comes down to it, whatever goes on between you and your partner is largely dependent on what you understand or what you see, in your relationship and your circumstance with this person. Um, but that alone isn't enough. I kind of feel like there has to be either outside of it or because of it, a deep love and passion for people in general. Because then if you have that, not only does your long distance partner become this huge universe you can float around and fly a spaceship in, but the people in their lives become a whole nother universe as well. I've spent, days talking to my partner about everything under the sun but us, you know, about the people in their lives, family, friends, what impact they had on them, and so much time has passed and we always had things to talk about because we understood that without people and the things that happen in their lives outside of us, we wouldn't be together then, right? Or we wouldn't be who we are. So I feel that a little mixture of consciousness, what you're aware of, in conjunction with the passion itself, and wherever it comes from. You got to have a love of people, I think, to really enrich your own personal relationships with people. Yeah.
Wrong answer. Thanks for
So I'll
playing.
leave it
Try
there.
again. Jason. No, go
Yes,
obviously, this
Tim.
is not a right and wrong thing. It's
Sure.
an opinion, but I have some I'm fishing. I'm searching for something in particular. Tim,
Oh,
you actually
oh, you're trying to get us to say what you want,
yeah,
what you think.
exactly. I'm trying to
So
get
maybe
you
ask Tim
guys
again. Tim?
huh?
What do you think Armand is thinking?
You
You
got
know,
you got
uh,
close. Actually, no, I don't want to give you any breadcrumbs. Go ahead, try again.
actually, I'm not sure. Why don't you take a whack at it, Kelly? I mainly wanted to explore my thoughts around what I felt was
Right.
important.
Obviously,
So,
I'm not some all-knowing deity with infallible wisdom. So obviously, my opinion is my opinion. But I think this is kind of like my answer. I feel like it has to be there. I don't see it working otherwise. I mean, it's possible. Anything's possible. People can accidentally do things and end up together. But I'm looking for something specific. But go ahead, Jason.
all right. Well, I'll share like Tim real quick. My personal thought is, and then I'll guess what you think. Uh, Personally, I think the key to a relationship, long distance or otherwise, is just the enjoyment you have for cultivating that with somebody. So that's it. I think if you
Wait,
enjoy it,
say it one more time.
just the enjoyment you
Mm.
get with somebody. You know how much that person pleases that person is pleasing to you. If you like somebody, then um, you do what's necessary. So I think, and then if you're going to transition that into like who's moving, well, whatever. I mean, you just have the conversation about it. Probably do some like logical realization about, you know, whatever, like the cost benefit analysis kind of idea, pros and cons, and make a shared choice together. I don't know, maybe depending on how serious you are, maybe you have to talk to extended family and local community members if someone was to move in. But going back to the original thought, my personal thing is, you know, you want to like somebody. That's it. You'll figure it out if you enjoy someone. As far as what you're saying, so you said communication, and then you said
No,
it's
but
not the most
yeah, it's
important
not the
thing.
most important.
So
If this thing's not there, communication, like you can,
right.
yeah,
So I'm gonna go with you're gonna say something like trust.
nope. See, here's the thing. Everything you guys are saying is obviously important, but it's not particular to long distance relationships. What I'm saying is particular to long distance relationships because
Oh,
although I
cell phone.
yeah, that is
True.
necessary. You can't kiss them through the phone and see them later on if you don't have a cell phone. No, but what everything you guys said, I don't think is necessarily particular to long distance relationships. They're particular to all relationships. So
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think that honestly, I don't really, because so many people are so anti long distance relationships. And look, you put a gun to my head, I'm always going to choose a non long distance relationship over a long distance relationship because I want to see my girl, right? But at the same time, to me, long distance relationships all that aren't really different than a regular relationship. I just consider it a regular relationship. You just live further away from that person than someone who is in an air quotes regular relationship. But this is, although I don't think the relationship is really all that different, there's one, and this is the most important thing in my personal opinion, thing that needs to be there from the jump, or else your relationship is almost like inevitably going to fail because you
Oh,
don't.
real quick.
Go ahead.
Sorry. All right. With that now, Tim didn't guess what you were thinking yet. So
No.
I guessed. Tim, you got a guess?
And audience members, if you're,
I,
go ahead, Tim.
oh no. I've known my co-host for a long time now, but ever since COVID hit, I understand him to be going through a little bit of changes and tweaks in here and there through our personal conversations. So I'm just honestly just curious as to what he'll land on here. I honestly don't know.
Ain't nobody changed. I'm
Word.
still the same OG. No, but I'm kidding. So, uh,
Sing it.
oh, I was gonna say, audience, if you're listening, you can pause the video here and take a gander at what you think the answer might be. I'll give you a few seconds. Okay. And if you guess intention, then you are a sage individual. Thank you for participating. So the reason why I say intention is because ultimately, if intention isn't there, it's like how you spend your time is so important in long distance relationships because let me back up. Let me start with a regular relationship. You don't really have to be all that intentional. Like you can accidentally end up with someone that you didn't even really intend to be with in the first place because of proximity and you being around them and you guys just being friends. And all of a sudden you guys didn't intend on having a meaningful relationship. You guys didn't even intend to be in a relationship. You could have been friends and you kind of like each other. Oh yeah, well, let's be together. Then you're together and then it works out. Or you kind of be in a casual relationship, but then because you guys are around each other, learning more about each other, oh yeah, we actually think we can be serious and we get married, right? In a long distance relationship, you can't like be like laissez faire about it. Oh yeah, and then expect something to work, right? I feel like from the jump, there has to be a clear intention as far as like timetables. Like how long are we foreseeing this to happen? And like even like again, you have to be since your time is limited, especially if it's like cross continental. Even more intentional about like how you spend the time together, talk when you are talking or doing whatever you may be doing, right? And I feel like that's not necessarily. It doesn't have to necessarily be there in a non long distance relationship because to me it's almost self evident that if you don't have intention from the beginning of a long distance relationship, it's not going to go anywhere because I mean, look, you have your life, away from this other person. You have friends, family, work, other people there, of the opposite sex to other people there in general. It doesn't have to be necessarily opposite sex, or obviously. But anyways, other people there to distract you. So it's like, if you're just kind of like, oh yeah, I talked to this boy or girl and they live in a different country, but it's like, how are you ever gonna like see each other, make plans, like actually end up together? So I feel like if you don't have intention from the outset of the long distance relationship, you're kind of just wasting your time, because to me it will inevitably fail. Now theoretically, you could not have it there at the outset and then at some point make it intentional. In which case I would say, okay, well, it's still intention is the most important thing, because even if it's not there from the beginning, in order for it to work, there needs to be intention there. And that's why I said you got close, Tim, because you said consciousness. And I would say, okay, yeah, consciousness, but consciousness is a bit different than intention. Like, you can't have intention without having consciousness, right? But you can have consciousness surrounding relationship without there being too much intention if it's a non-long distance relationship.
So intention, as far as a clear sense of, purpose and direction you want to go with your partner.
Yes,
Right.
sir.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, intention. Like, everything has to be intentional. Like, even like when you're talking to that person, like, getting to know them is kind of more of an intentional thing, because you lack the ability to be together in person. So that's why, as I stated earlier in the show, when I alluded to people saying like, oh yeah, I found out more about this person in my long distance relationship than I did with people who were close, because like they were intentionally, or even if it wasn't so much consciously, but they're like, okay, I'm gonna, like, I want to talk to this person more, find out more about them, ask them more questions, because it's like, yeah, who is this person? Like, who's this? Or even if they met them in real life and they were separated by distance, it's like the intention is either subconsciously compels the person to find out more about them through communication, or you're consciously thinking about it because of the long distance. So I just think that intention is it's absolutely necessary, or you're doomed to fail.
Yeah. I like it. I feel that sometimes intent, and even a little bit of what I mentioned, kind of develops as you're exercising a long distance relationship. I feel that having intention, as far as what I understand, you're defining it as, is always great. It gives direction. A lot of times when you meet someone, and I have a lot of experiences in dating apps, I think a drive, and this is the way I see it, I think all of us have a drive to be with the one we're romantically in love with. It's automatic. Most of us, I think, aspire to want to eventually be together. I think the clarity surrounding how that's going to happen between you and this particular individual, and where you guys want to be, may not be the same on the outset, on the beginning, and changes especially during the investigation process. I met a lot of people across the dating sites and many people say one thing in their bio, but they actually mean another. But they want to start off as friends, or they specifically articulate that they just want to look for more friends or more conversation. They need more conversation in their life and stuff. I've seen some of that in bios. And oftentimes, when we, as far as to the reasons, why this person's seeking out people, a lot of people don't even know. Sometimes they'll say that in their bio. They don't know exactly what they're doing on this dating site or app. This is their first time.
Which means
They just want to
they know why they're there.
experience
They're
it.
lonely. You want to be there.
Yeah, and see where it goes. So it's absolutely fascinating, where you are mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually, at the beginning of an endeavor like a long distance relationship. So it's very fascinating. Yeah. Interesting.
So I'll ask you guys, when it comes to the cons of a long distance relationship, what do you guys think it may be? And I'll say what mine is without elaborating on it, because I'll let you guys go first. But I would say, for me, there is no cons. If there's intention there from the beginning, I don't really think there's any con other than the obvious. You don't get to see your partner as much than if you weren't in a long distance relationship and the person lived close to you. But outside that obvious one that's like you can't avoid, I don't think there's any additional cons there if there's intention there. I mean, to me, the only con that's ever been there again was the I want to see my partner. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Did
Yeah, I
you
would
want to
say
go ahead, Jason?
sure. Just kind of tapping into that and a little deeper is, yeah, I want to see them and also observing them on a day to day basis. Just can't really do it. So I would say,
But if
you
you're
know, that
intentional,
is
you will inevitably do it.
sure. Yeah, I'm just thinking in
Yeah, I
general
got you.
how a day to day interaction you're really gonna get to see um, how I think how someone is, and of course you can know that, and character stands out. I mean, one can assume as well fairly. I think if you've spent some time, and depending on the way we conversate, and perhaps our ability to express certain aspects of who we are. So, in any case, though, circumstances that happen in person and day to day, they just can't be replaced. Again, it need not be a con either. Yet, I would say to me, it can't be fulfilled uh, when you're just not together. It requires actual hours. Like in cycling, we called it like in riding bikes. We would sit for hours on a bike, and 5, 6, 7 hours riding 100 miles or more, and we call it time in the saddle. It just means that you can't replace it. You just actually have to grind it out. And all I'm saying is there's certain things that can't be replaced with other things, and I think spending time actually seeing each other on a day in day out basis, going through various things of life together, not only intentional creating some space, oh hey, you're coming to visit, well I'm going to kind of clear my schedule up, but actually having your lives kind of just coincide in some capacity, seeing what that looks like, seeing how a person might handle a particular hardship, or their attitude coming back from their work, or how they might engage a certain person from the family who lives close by, or maybe their thoughts about aspects of where they live that you just wouldn't ever hear if you were maybe not walking in the neighborhood that day. So
Yeah.
anyway, just some of those things. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
There's probably
the
some
information is clearest, when you're in close proximity to each other frequently. You know what I'm saying? If you want to be in the most precise, accurate position that you want to be, that you can be, as far as receiving accurate, good quality information, for sure, nothing's going to beat that. Nothing. And it's our ability as human beings to absorb information is really a huge defining characteristic of what separates us evolutionary wise from other animals. That's why our brains are so effing huge. Our ability to absorb and process information is, like, in terms of survival, what puts us at the very top. And of course, our very destruction as well. But we're an information gathering machine, a sponge essentially. So wherever that sponge is, it's really important. So yeah, definitely agree.
I'll concede to that point because I do agree with it. I think the reason why I wasn't viewing that as a potential problem, because in my mind, it's like I know that in order for you to proceed in the relationship and take the next step, that you wouldn't do that unless you got that requisite time spent in person together. So it's almost like, again, it's kind of like inherently you're not going to be able to see them. You're not going to be able to get to know them in the realest, truest sense in person until you won't get to do that for a while. It might take you longer for you to develop the clear sense of who they are in person, as opposed to at that person, if you guys weren't long distance. So yeah, I guess that is another con, whereas it will take you longer to truly get to know the person because you won't get to see them live in the flesh in action as much. But again, if you're intentional, you will get to see them because you'll make it happen, and then you can learn as you go, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, so
And perhaps if you're intentional too, you might not need all that information to take a step, a powerful step toward building something with someone. I mean,
I didn't want to rock
it
the
might,
boat. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, you might see something really unpleasant the more time you spend with somebody. Yet, again, yeah, if you're intentional to kind of address whatever comes your way with this person, you're going to look at that and hopefully, you know, um, again, maybe it's a surprise. Oh, this person wasn't like this when it was, when we weren't living in the same area. Now this is the feeling I'm getting. And, that can just be addressed. It need not be right. Like if you experience it before or later, it's still going to provide the same opportunity um, in the moment, which is to decide whether or not it means something for continuing to cultivate together or deciding, oh, maybe it's not worth it.
Now I'll go one further. Intent by itself, I feel, even needs to be broken down further because there's all types of intentions you may have with you and your partner. Like with me in my personal life, I had a huge string of intentions with my long distance partner, but a lot of it was very unrealistic. And it played a role into the destruction of my relationship experiences. I also know that intent in my personal investigation doesn't exist without talking about the people and things in your life that helped you formulate the reasons as to why you're doing things, why you're interacting with this person, why you want to go this direction with this potential partner. Um, so so that's that as far as my idea of intention. I think intention in terms of clarity about what you want is extremely beneficial and a huge advantage at the beginning of the relationship. It's better than having, excuse me, no idea or being lost at the get go. You know what I'm saying? You're just kind of poking and dabbling, you're not really, I feel like you're not going to move as fast, or the likelihood of that relationship going a certain clear defined way will be less. But to answer that con, excuse me, long distance relationship by itself, the circumstance of a long distance relationship, without thinking about, um, you know, everything that the two people are bringing into it that could, you know, benefit or disadvantage the long distance circumstance between you and that partner. I feel that long distance relationship as a circumstance, in conjunction with all of the negatives surrounding the umbrella of romanticism, is really bad. And I'm talking about that from experience. I have a massive imagination, and there was a lot of ideals and fantasies that I had with my romantic partners that were extremely unrealistic, and most of my idea of a romantic relationship throughout the early times of my life in my long distance relationship definitely had to do with what I picked up on TV, through video games, and vicariously through my friends. And again, when you're in a play, when you're growing up in positions and places in your life where the type of information you receive from something, isn't the whole picture, then that leaves you liable to really exercise a circumstance, life with someone else, in a very unrealistic way. There's so many realities and reasonings behind what's going on in your relationship that's choom choom going past you and over your head and stuff. So I want to say that a major con to a long distance relationship is walking into it with full blown romanticism alone. The energy and zeal, the dreamy, the fantasy like of, what you imagine it would be like with this person you're engaging a long distance relationship alone could be really bad, especially without a realistic understanding of the pitfalls or potential pitfalls surrounding the hardships of a long distance relationship.
No doubt. I don't have anything to add to that. Jason, did you have any final thoughts?
No, I love it. That
True
works.
that. We got close, guys. We got close to ending an episode underneath an hour, like a full actual episode. One day we will do it. We're already at the 1 hour and 20-second mark. But that being said, thank you everyone for tuning in and listening to today's episode. We'll catch you guys on the flip side. And until then, be easy. Peace.
Hey, much love, peoples. Much love.